Okay, I'm doing this video as a closure because that live stream abruptly ended. Of course, I didn't know. Of course, I was opening up my eyes and paying attention, but I had gotten kicked off already once, and then I guess the system decided, okay, you're done streaming. I don't know. So I just feel like um, no closure because it was just like abruptly ended. Um, but anyway, um, that was relaxing. Just trying to get some stretching in. Let's do the music and maybe watch the shapes go through their little system there on that Shapes.io game. So I just wanted to do a video as a closure, and so that's the fun, I guess, of technology and doing these things. The equipment, I mean, you can only do what your equipment allows you to do or your knowledge on doing something. Gosh, that light is in my eyes. Man, that's bright. So, anyway, I don't know. I just wanted to, I guess, touch base with everyone. Anybody, a few people who did pop their head in, I guess. I don't know. I had my eyes closed a lot, so I don't know what all I want to do. I was thinking of doing a video on pets, like just talking about the different pets we had through the years. Um, that story in itself. Because we got into reptiles for a while because of my husband. Thought something I probably would have done on my own. But I guess I could just do that. Of course, we all had dogs. We started with a dog when our oldest was 2. We were living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and we got this boxer bulldog from the animal shelter. All of the dog and cats that we've had have been rescues. So we had the dog and a kid, and the 2 of us living in a 1-bedroom apartment. And then my husband decided he wanted to have a snake because he wanted one as a kid, and his mother always told him no. So I was like, "Hey, you're an adult, do whatever you want." So he went out and bought a ball python, and our oldest was learning his numbers at the time. So when we started discussing names, I was like, well, what do you think that we should name the snake? And he goes, number 3. So that stuck, and that was the name of our first snake, was number 3. And then after a few months, my husband wanted to get another one. So he found a guy who had another ball python for sale. Found it on Craigslist or something like that, the local paper or something. This was still when you could still get an actual paper. And so he went and he talked to the guy and, asked, well, is it male or female? Now, the first one we got, he was a male. And so he asked the guy, is it male or female? And he told my husband it was male. So he brought it home. I had him brought it home, and he put it in the same cage as number 3. And after a few weeks, my husband was walking by the cage and was like, what are they doing in there? Like, are they fighting? Like, what is going on? And then he was like, oh, wait, they're copulating. So we found out that the snake that we got from that guy was actually female, and she did get pregnant, and she had a clutch of eggs, but because we didn't know what we were doing, she laid the clutch on top of the heating pad, and they all died because they got overheated. So my husband was like, well, I need to find out what to do. So he started pursuing information and talking to people and going to the library and all that stuff to get information on how to successfully hatch a clutch of snake eggs. And so we kept them together, so she got pregnant again, and so that the second clutch we removed, and he made his own incubator through a styrofoam. He got a styrofoam container with a lid on it, and he learned how to make his own incubator with a little heating unit and a little fan. So we put, or he did, he was doing all this back then, put the eggs in the incubator and they hatched out, and then we sold them to the pet store. So that's how we got into snake breeding, which we were doing for a while. And then later on, he wanted to do a different type of snake, so he got some corn snakes. And so we had corn snakes, and then he got into leopard geckos. So we had the leopard geckos, and then he started breeding the leopard geckos. And that was difficult. And there was some trial and error on that. The one clutch we didn't lose, but he had put the one clutch in the incubator. But then there's another clutch that was hatched out like a couple weeks later. So he just went and put that clutch in also in with the other clutch, which was a mistake because the first clutch hatched and then they ran over the other eggs and disturbed them, and then that caused those leopard geckos to be born with deformities. Some of them were blind and stuff, so it was kind of a disaster. My husband felt really, really bad. So he learned his lesson on that, to not put, clutches of eggs that are hatched out different times in the same. Well, we had them actually in a container because we put them in the container with the substrate and the stuff that hold, it was like this grain. It was it's that white stuff, like if you if you get a potted plant, sometimes they'll have this white stuff. It absorbs the water so that you can water the plant, and then it soaks up the water, and uh, then slowly it gives the plant water. Well, we were using that in the containers, and you had to like pay attention to how moist it was. You didn't want it to get too dry. You didn't want it to be too wet. Um, so we had actually had like 2 or 3 different containers in the incubator because we could fit more than one. So we started doing that, and then that got to be too much because my husband was still, he was working full time at a job outside the house, and he was doing this all on the side, and then I was an at-home mom with our son and doing some of whatever I could to help him with all this. All living in this 1-bedroom apartment. And then I got pregnant with our twin daughters. So, a couple weeks before they were born, my husband bought 2 Colombian boas. They were baby boas. They're from the same clutch, so they're brother and sister. So he bought them, and the plan was to breed them together because that's how you get the crazy morphs and stuff and different patterns and colors, is you interbreed. So they were probably, an inch in diameter and 12 inches long when he brought them home. Brought them home in a brown paper lunch bag, and they turned out to be 8 feet long and probably about this big around by the time they were full grown. So we had those. So I can't remember. So we had ball pythons, corns, and the boas, and the dog. And then the girls were born, and so we were still living in the 1-bedroom apartment. So then we had 5 people in this 1-bedroom apartment. So, I didn't realize until years later that it's like, oh my gosh, we were those people. we were one of those families that was like, oh my gosh, it's those people. And then we were breeding mice also for a while to try to save money on feeding the snakes. All in this 1-bedroom apartment. But that got to be too much. Oh gosh, it just they stink up the place because they just poop all the time, and it's having to constantly clean out the cage. And I was trying to take care of our daughters too, who had they were 9 weeks early and had spent 6 weeks in a NICU. So when they came home from the hospital, they had some medical issues I had to take care of. That'll be another video. I won't go into this video because we're trying to keep this one. We'll do this one pets. So I'll discuss that in another video. So we lived in that apartment 6 years. And they finally, the management finally said, you guys need to either upgrade to a 2-bedroom or move out. So we went looking for a place. We went house shopping to buy a house, and I guess it just wasn't time. Um, excuse me. I don't know, we hooked up with a real estate company, and it just was getting frustrated because the agent kept taking us and showing houses that already had offers on them. And so a couple of times we're like, oh yeah, I think we want to make an offer on this, and he's like, oh, and then he's like, oh, pulls it up in the computer, whatever, and he's like, oh, well, this house actually already has an offer on it. We're like, okay, well then why did you show it to us? And I don't know, I guess they just, I don't know, it was just weird. I guess they didn't take it seriously, because I guess we weren't ready. But I don't know if they had actually been a good real estate company and that agent would have treated us good. I mean, I don't know, we might have bought a house. I don't know. But we end up moving to a house we rented. One of the ladies who was a manager at one of the pet stores, her parents died. Or, well, her mother, I guess, died. Maybe her, whatever. It was her parents' house. It was the house she grew up in. But her and her husband had their own house. But then I guess she ended up having to take over the house because her family, her parents couldn't take care of it. I know her dad was still alive because he was living in they had put a fence halfway through the backyard, and he was living on the back side of that area in a little shed that was there. And so we rented this house from them. We had a different dog, though. When we came, it was supposed to be about pets. Because we had Riley, and she was a boxer. So we had her when we moved into that house. So the first dog, the boxer bulldog, she died. And then we got this boxer. And then we had her when we... Right? No. Let's see. No. Okay, no. We had the first dog, and then when we moved into the house to rent that, then within the first year of that dog had to be put down. She got sick, and then for our son's birthday the next year, we got the dog, the boxer. That's what it is, right? Yeah, the boxer, because remember, it was on his birthday. He was at school, and we brought the dog in and put her on the bed in our bedroom. It's like, hey, go in that room and check it out. See if you find anything. And there was the dog sitting on the bed. So we rescued her because a couple had gotten her, but the wife and mother was pregnant, but they had already had a little girl, and they had got the puppy for the little girl. But the mother, she gave birth to the new baby, and it was like, okay, wait a minute, too much, yeah, which was dumb. You don't get a puppy when you're pregnant. So it's like, so she couldn't take care of the dog. It was too much with the new baby, and then she had the other child. They had the other child, and then you're trying to do a puppy too. That's ridiculous. So she was like, I need to get rid of this puppy. So the neighbor took her in, but the dog kept, when she got older, she kept jumping over the back fence, and her the people's houses, the backyard was, if you go on the other side of the fence, it was a main highway. So she kept jumping over the fence and almost getting hit in traffic. And she's like, didn't know what to do to try to keep this dog contained because she had to leave to go to work during the day. So she's wanting to leave the dog outside to do its business. But it kept jumping over the fence. So she put a note up in our vet's office. So when we went looking for another dog, and my husband wanted a boxer, there was this note. So we talked to her, and or he talked to her. So we took the dog in. And then we also, before we moved, my husband had gotten an iguana. So when we moved into that rental house, we had snakes, a dog. We also had a cat, so there's a story behind that too. So we had the dog, cat, snakes, iguana. But we had stopped. He had stopped doing the leopard geckos, so we didn't have the leopard geckos. But the story between the cat is our son was playing with the neighbor kids at the apartment complex, and they found a little tiny kitten, and she was way too young to be away from her mother. But they brought her to our apartment, and our son was begging to keep her, but the two little boys, they were wanting to keep her too. And so I asked our son, well, who found the kitten first? And he's like, well, they did. So I was like, okay, well, if they found her first, then they get first pick. Oh, and he was not happy. I started crying, So the boys left, and then like a couple of hours later, they came knocking on our door. Our mom said no. So of course, if they couldn't keep the cat, then I was obligated to keep it. So our son's all, yeah, I want to keep the cat. I want to keep the cat. If they can make, their mom said no. So we took the cat in. Oh my gosh, she was just covered with fleas. Turned her over in her tummy. It was like all these fleas. She was just so tiny. And so we my husband went to the pet store and got the flea bath, and so we cleaned her up, and then of course when we could, take her to the vet and have her checked out, and then of course we got her fixed, and she was a polydactyl cat, which means she had an extra, on her front paws, she had an extra half a paw, and on her back feet, her back paws, she had one extra toe off to the side. And so we called her Mitzi, like Mittens. So we had her. So in our bed, so when we were being told to move out of that one-bedroom apartment, we had 2 adults and 3 children, a dog, a cat, an iguana, and some snakes. So that's what when we rented the house, that's what we moved into that house with. Because it was the other dog, and then when we got to the second in that house, then she died, and then we got the boxer. But while we were there, my husband got rid of the iguana, because that got to be too much, because he was working a lot of hours, and I just couldn't keep track of that, and with the iguana, they need to eat like every day, and you gotta give them the fresh fruits and vegetables and stuff. And with the snakes, they can go several weeks without eating. So the snakes, I didn't have no big deal, and then of course with the dog, you just you can feed them once a day, and then they eat. With the dogs, so that one wasn't an issue. And the cat, you just leave the cat food somewhere where they can get to it whenever they want. But that iguana was just too much for me. With him being gone, and I had the 3 kids, So I was like, this is way too much. Because I was a mom, so I was having to take care of all that. I was doing all that. And we only had a washer at that. That's the wash. That is a Midwestern thing to say wash instead of wash. I have tried to make a considered effort to stop saying that, but both my parents are from the Midwest. So it's just something I grew up with, saying wash instead of wash. But we only had a washer at the house, and there was no dryer. So there was a clothesline out in the backyard, so I would hang the clothes out there, but in the bad weather, I would have to hang the clothes up all over the house. I'd hang the clothes up all over the house. So that was something that I had to take care of, but anyway, so this is supposed to be about pets. So, and then my husband, while we were at that house, decided he wanted to get a fish tank. So we got a fish tank, started doing goldfish. Well, I think he started actually with an angelfish or something, but it died. I don't know, the fish kept getting sick or whatever and dying or whatever. And we found out we have to, because there's so much chlorine and crap in the water here, the tap water, you have to put these drops in the water to clean the water so that it gets rid of the chlorine and stuff. And so it was hurting the fish. And then we lived at that house for 2 years, but halfway through that living there, I got pregnant again with our youngest. So while we were at that house, I gave birth to our 4th child. So now we had a dog, a cat, 4 children, snakes, fish, I think that was it on all that. But we had the boas, we had the corn snakes, we had the ball pythons, and my husband was trying to wanting different corns, and then he had gotten this leucistic snake. It was solid white. The whole snake was solid white, no patterns. And then he was doing the albino corns, which means they don't have any black in their skin color. So they were all orange and yellow and cream color. So they still had patterns, but there was no black in any of the scales. Didn't have any black in the colors. They were just all these other colors. And then he started to breed those ones. So here we were breeding ball pythons and corn snakes. And the boas weren't old enough to breed yet, so that didn't happen quite yet at that time. But then we needed to move out of that house. It was not the best situation. I mean, it was cheap, but it wasn't the best situation, and it was ended up making our daughters sick. They got lead poisoning from the paint on the outside outside the house, because the windows, the paint was really old, so it was flaking off, and it was flaking off into the windowsill, and then they would sit there, and it was just low enough where they could stand at the windowsill like this and look out the window. And then, of course, because of their age, they were putting their fingers in their mouth. So it was causing them to ingest, ended up being high levels of lead, because the house was built like in the 1920s. So it still had the lead-based paint on the outside. So we had to tell the owners about that. So they were gracious enough. They came and they were pressure washing the outside of the house and trying to get rid of as much of the paint on the outside of the house as they could. And then they repainted the house. By that time it was pretty too late. Our daughters already had the lead poisoning. And that was after all their already medical stuff. So that made us feel pretty crappy that we rented a house that made our kids sick. So we're like, okay, we gotta go look for a house again to buy. We gotta get our own house. So we went looking for a house again, house shopping, with 4 kids. And, Jeremiah, our youngest, was a baby. Then you had the girls who are, their birthday's in December, and he's born in March. So they had just turned 2. Yeah, they had just turned 2 when he was born. So we had twin daughters who were 2 and had the baby. And then Joshua's, he was 7 when Jeremiah was born. So we had a 7-year-old, 2 2-year-olds, and a baby trying to go house shopping. So we finally found a house later on the year that Jeremiah was born, and we bought this house in 2003, and Jeremiah was 8 months old when we moved in, and the girls were just about to turn 3, and Joshua was 7. So anyway, we got this house, and so then we decided we wanted to get another dog, and so my husband wanted to do a Boston Terrier. So he went looking for a Boston Terrier, and he was calling around at the different shelters, and he called one, and they said, yeah, in fact, we just got her. How'd you know? And he's like, I didn't. I just am calling around. And so they said, well, he goes, well, they said, well, won't you come and look at her and we'll discuss her situation. And what happened was her and 2 other dogs were put in a dog kennel in a house. I guess it was maybe a rental house or something. And they stuck the 3 dogs in this kennel and then just left the house. Like they were gone, like moved out. And so these dogs were stuck in this cage kennel in this house, and so the people who owned the house or whatever, when they came to deal with the house, because I guess they weren't getting their rent, they came to the house and found these dogs in this kennel, and they'd been in there for a couple weeks or at least, um, stuck in this cage, not able to get out, not being fed. And so the little Boston Terrier, all her hair on her back was gone, and she had this really bad skin condition. So they had been trying to nurse her back to health, get her all cleaned up, and so we took her in, and we had to wash her with special medicated shampoo for a couple weeks. I think it was when we got her, and all her hair grew back except for a little patch right up by her tail. There was always this one small patch that just never grew hair back, but the rest of her hair did grow back. And so she was a rescue, so we got the Boston Terrier. And she obviously had at least one litter of puppies. And her teats were really big. So we were trying to decide what to call her. And my husband wanted to call her Porky because, Boston Terriers do that snorting thing. And I was like, she's a girl. That's Porky. That's a boy. That would be for a boy dog. But I was like, that's an ugly name. And so, and me and our oldest son, were discussing. I said, well, won't we call her Mammy? Because she's got those big old mammary glands. And my husband's all, Mammy? I go, hey, well, let's say each name and see which one she responds to. So, he called out, Porky, come here, Porky, and she was just sitting on the couch. And then I said, hey, Mammy, and she turned around, she looked at me and started wanting to come over to me or something. So I'm like, well, there you go. She was responding to Mammy and not Porky. And so that we had this little Boston Terrier, and her and the boxer we had then, they got along so good. But then the the boxer got sick, and we had to put her down. And then we got this, my husband wanted to do a pit bull. So he found this pit bull at one of the shelters. So we got that one, and she was really sweet. She was a really sweet dog. She really was. She was very quiet. She would move, and she actually had this tan and white coloring, and she kind of looked like a cow, like the patterns of the cow. And she would stand by the bed, like in the morning when she was wanting to go out and do her business. She would stand next to on my husband's side of the bed and moo at him. She would be like, She really, it was like almost like sounded like a moo. So she would moo at him until, and it was just, she never would bark. She just would, She would just stand there though until he finally would get up and let her out. But I used to hate though, because by the time we got her, I was working. I was back out in the work world. You understand, we were still doing all the snakes all this time, and then we had the cat. So when we moved to this house, we had one dog, a cat, and a bunch of snakes. and fish. And but so in the couple, the Colombian, the boas had gotten, they'd gotten 5 feet long by that time, and they were, good 5 inches in diameter, maybe more, maybe. And trying to go through all my memories is all some of this stuff is nothing. A long time ago. This month, right? This is fixing to go into Thanksgiving. Yeah. So the week of Thanksgiving, we'll have been at this house 21 years. So we moved in the week of Thanksgiving. So I'm trying to go back through the memories of this. So then we got the Boston Terrier, and then we got the Pit Bull. And then the Boston Terrier. I mean, we don't really know how old she was because we got her from that shelter. They didn't really know. So she ended up, of course, the Bostons, their lifespan's around 10 years. Not like some of the other breeds that can do 20. But she actually lived like 14, 15, and we had her for a while, quite a while, and if she had been 5 years old when we got her, because that's what they told us, that she was 5, I think is that what they told her. But she lived we had her like 10 years, I think it was. And even our vet was like surprised that she was being it, because she ended up getting those cataracts in her eyes. She went blind, and her teeth were all crazy, and we had to have a bunch of her teeth pulled. And so we finally put her down. It was just getting too much, and I was working overnight stocking at Wally World. I'd come home on my lunch break and let her out to do her business, but she would fall. We have our backyards are like this on our block, so this is one person's yard, and then the next yard is down. So they have between the fence and between the yards, but then they have in our backyard these railroad ties that they put. But there's a space between the railroad ties and our neighbor's fence, and she would fall down in there because she couldn't see where she was going. And so I'd let her out, and then I'd eat my lunch. I'm trying to eat my lunch. I get my lunch done, and I'm ready to get back to work because I'm just on my lunch break, and I can't find her in the backyard, and it's the middle of the night because I'm working overnight. I'm working the graveyard shift, so my lunch was from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. in the morning. So I'm out there with a flashlight trying to find this dog on my lunch break. So it just got too much that it was starting to get dangerous where she couldn't see, where she was completely blind. So we put her down, and then we ended up getting another Boston Terrier. My husband was looking to get another dog, so we went to a shelter, and there was this Boston Terrier there, and I was like, I got all emotional because I was missing the other Boston Terrier, and so we ended up adopting her from the shelter, and boy was she a pistol. We called her Ruby, and she was cantankerous. She was something else. And then the pit bull died suddenly. she was fine. We got up one morning, it was like a Saturday or something, or no, Friday. I don't know. It was during the week because we were able to call the doctor's office. And she was acting just fine, and by noon, she was throwing up, and she was having trouble walking. She was out in the backyard trying to do her business, and she was having trouble walking. And by 6 p.m., we had her at the vet's office putting her down. My husband took that really hard because he had trained her to be a service dog. And he had put in a lot of time and energy and effort into training her as an official service dog. And this, she just was like, we got up, and then by the end of the day, she was gone. And my husband was already having some issues mentally because of some stuff that had happened earlier in the year. I won't go into that right now either, but so that was really hard on him. So then we had now we had just the second Boston Terrier, and then that was in 2019 that the pit bull died. And things were just getting too stressful. So at the end of 2019, I quit my job. Of course, then a few months later, we went into the pandemic and lockdown and all that. But during the pandemic, my husband decided he wanted to get another dog. And he just got up one morning and was like, well, he was talking to me. We were having trouble in our marriage. And he was like, I think I want to get another dog. I'm like, okay. And then the next morning he just got up, I'm getting me another dog, and then he just left. And he had already seen one on Craigslist or whatever it was, or the shelter's website or something. So he went and got this other dog, and she also is a purebred pit bull, and that's who we have now. We have her, Betty. We call her Betty, and she's a very mouthy dog, very, very mouthy. She barks a lot, barks at every little noise. Every time the neighbors across the street, and there's like a bunch of people living there, so they all have their own cars, like 5-6 cars parked over there all the time. So they're coming and going all the time, and every time they get in and out of their cars, she barks at the door closing, or and it's just like. And I don't know what she just barks all the time at every little thing. But right before the other pit bull died, because we had lost the other Boston Terrier, we ended up getting another dog then too. So we had the Boxer and the Boston Terrier. Then the Boxer died. So then we got the Pit Bull. But then the Boston Terrier died. So we were left with just the Pit Bull. So then we got another dog that we still have. And she's a Pit Bull Lab mix. That's Penelope. And she was just a puppy, and she was also a rescue. A lady had gotten her. She lived in a mobile home park, and they got a puppy because they had kids, but then she was having trouble because her mobile home didn't have a fence around it, so it was just open land. So she couldn't leave the dog outside during the day while she went to work. And so it just got too much for her trying to take care of this dog, and she was having to leave it to go to work. So the dog was by itself at home at the all day, and then that she had the kids, but they were in school. So she realized it was not a good situation for the dog. So she needed to find a home for it. And plus, I think she was moving. She was also going to move, and they didn't allow pets where she was moving to. So she was like, we gotta get rid of this dog, this puppy. And so we got her. And then shortly after getting her, the pit bull died suddenly. Yeah, and then we just had the pit bull lab, and then my husband decided he wanted to get another dog, and so we went looking for a pit bull again. So then he got this one that we have. So that's the dogs. So we had the boxer bulldog, the boxer, pit bull, 2 Boston Terriers, and now another pit bull and pit bull lab. So we're on our 7th dog. These 2 are our 6th and 7th dogs. And then the cat, the polydactyl cat, she got old and we had to put her down. And then a year or 2 later, we got a brother and sister. There's a story behind that one. My husband used to deliver pizza for Domino's, and he went to go deliver some pizza, and there was this cat walking down the sidewalk, and he was like, wow, that's a really cool looking cat, he said to himself. So he delivered the pizza, right? Well, a couple weeks later, that same house ordered pizza again. So he went to deliver pizza, and when the lady opened the door, the cat came out of the house, and he's like, oh, that's a cool cat. I saw it a couple weeks ago when you ordered pizza. I saw that cat walking down the sidewalk. It's really cool looking. She goes, you want it? He's like, what? And a mother cat, had given birth to a litter in her backyard. So she took the cats in, but she already had 4 cats of her own, and this cat, she gave birth to four kittens. So that was like the mother and the 4 kittens that brought 5 more to her house. So that 9 cats, and she's like, I can't take care of this many cats. So she's like, you want them, you can have them. And she's like, he's already fixed. And she had gotten all the kittens fixed too. And so she's like, you can just have them. And he's like, well, I gotta go talk to my wife first, Okay, well, she said, well, here's my number, just let me know when you guys can come. If she, whatever, just let me know. So he came home, was like, hey, you should come look at this cat, So I'm like, okay, I guess, by that time we were ready to get another cat to replace Mitzi, who had died. So we went to this lady's house, and then I saw this other cat, and she was like, well, that's also, that's his sister. She was part of the same litter. So I just was like, we gotta take both of them, So my husband was like, what? I go, I just want to take this one too, and look, this lady needs it. And she had gotten, like I said, all the kittens fixed, so she was also fixed too already. So, and she was like just gonna give them away. She didn't want when it wasn't selling them. She was like, just take them, you know. I'm like, look, she's fixed. You know, they're both fixed, and she's trying to get rid of these cats because she took too many. So we took 2 cats. So we still have, well, so Annie, so we named the girl Annie and the boy Angel. And, oh my goodness, the Angel just latched onto the kids, and he was so mellow and so easygoing, and the kids would put him in the stroller. We had a banana stroller left over, you know, we still had from Jeremiah when he was a baby, and they would put Angel on his back, like just sit there like just like a baby, and they would put the blankets around him and put some stuffed animals with him. And they would push him around the house, and then even go outside and push him up and down the sidewalk. And he would just sit there the whole time. And he would let them wheel him around all over the place. And then they all carried him like a kid too on their hip, you know, like he'd carry him like this. And he would let him, where his both, you know, one leg was in front, one leg was on the back, and they'd carry him like a kid. But he would not let me or my husband do that to him. We tried to carry him like that, and he'd like, what are you doing? Or they would carry him up on their shoulder like a baby, like we'd carry a baby. And every time we tried to do it, he'd be like, what are you doing? But all the kids, and then of course Annie didn't go for the stroller thing. They tried to put Annie in the stroller, and as soon as they started moving the stroller, then she jumped out and was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. But then about 2 months after we got those 2 cats, Annie was walking all funny. Like, we realized she wasn't putting any weight on the one back leg, and we're like, oh, do you have a sore foot? Do you have a sore leg? You know, so I looked at her, and I picked her up, and her leg just was like limp. I was like, what? I go, we need to take this cat in. There is something seriously wrong with her leg. And so we took her in, and the x-ray showed her whole, I guess wouldn't be her knee, I guess, or her elbow. I guess it'd be her knee. It's the back leg, so I guess it would be equivalent of our knee. Was just shattered into like 20 pieces. And the vet's all, we can't fix this. We can't save this leg. We can't fix it. So we're like, okay. And so we had to have her leg amputated, and we don't know what happened. We don't know what happened. But she's fine. So we have a big oak tree in our backyard. She would climb that oak tree. She would catch birds. So it didn't slow her down at all. And so we have a 3-legged cat. So we still have her. And then her brother, we just lost him a few months ago. We really don't know what happened to him. He liked he liked to roam the neighborhood. He's the outside cat, so we'd let him out, and then he always would come and sit on the chair on the front porch in the morning. And one morning we went out there and he wasn't there, and as we waited throughout the day, he never showed up. So it was pretty clear by the end of the day that he didn't show up, that he probably wasn't coming back, but we still held out. But as each day passed, he didn't show up. So we think that he got hit by a car, and then they cleaned him up and never told us. there was a fresh blood spot on the street down from our house around that time. So we think what happened is one of the neighbors hit him with their car and then just cleaned him up and didn't want to say anything, which we'd rather at least know for sure. I would have rather, even if it was their fault, I would have rather have been told. But so we don't know what happened. He's never showed back up. So at this point, we just have to assume that he probably got hit by a car. So that was just earlier this year, just a few months ago, and we've had him and his sister for like 10 years, 10, 12 years. The girls were like in 4th or 5th grade at the time. But then, before he went missing, we'd gotten this orange kitten. Our son, who has moved out, a friend of his lived in an apartment complex, and I guess some cat laid her litter in the wall. So like last year in December, they were hearing all this meowing, and they're like, we think it's in the wall, because nobody could find them, It was like, so, but I guess in January, she finally started bringing the kittens out. So, our son brought the mother and the kittens over to his apartment, but he was like, I can't keep these cats. So, he, unbeknownst to everybody, he brought one of the cats over, and I was like, oh my gosh, look at that, it's a kitten, it's just a little thing. So the girls, I go, oh, you're going to show the girls? And he's like, yeah, so brought the girls out, and of course they wanted to see the rest of the litter, because he was telling them what the whole deal was. So they're like, oh, we want to see the whole litter, so they went over to his apartment to look at all the kittens. Well, a few weeks later, the girls were asking him about the cats. Oh, did you get a home for the kittens? And he's like, yeah, they've been taken care of. And that's all he said. Well, a few days later, I was outside. My neighbor came by, and she likes to feed the neighborhood cats, and she supposedly has a permit to be a official cat sanctuary or shelter or whatever in her home. Well, I was all talking to her and saying hi and letting her know some things that was going on with my husband's health. And then she's like, oh, well, somebody dropped off some cats in a box with some cat food at my door. And I went, really? And I was like, so I came in, I was telling our daughters, they're like, what? I go, I think that was Josh. So like, we're going to go look at it. So my one daughter went, because I'm going to go look at him. And I go, yeah, because you guys have seen the cats, so you'll be able to recognize them. So she went up to our neighbor's house, and she came back. She goes, yeah, those are the cats. But they wanted one of them. So we took one of the cats in. That's our orange cat, little Disco. He's a pistol. And then, like a month or two after bringing him in, then Angel went missing. So we had 3 cats. So we had 3 cats, 2 dogs, earlier this year, and a fish, because my daughter had a betta fish, but the betta fish died, and she realized that it takes up too much to take care of the fish, so She's like, yeah, okay, I'm done. Um, so that's what it is on cats. So we're on our fourth cat, which we have two now. And we got rid of the snakes a long time ago because it just got too much. I was trying to do it by myself. My husband was working lots of hours, and it was just getting too much to try to keep them fed, and so we slowly got rid of them, or like some of them died because they can get, snakes get old too and die. Um, but we sold most of them. Uh, but I did, we had the snakes, and I was actually, for a while there, doing a little entrepreneur business. I wasn't really making any money. I wasn't was far from being in the black. And I would go to the libraries and do presentations with the snakes and talk about snakes. But that got to be too much because I still had the kids. They're all still, like, some of them still in elementary, and I think our oldest was in junior high. But the three younger ones were in elementary, so I was having to take them to the presentations sometimes. Because I didn't want to leave them here at the house, My husband was working a lot of hours. So we had the snakes. We had, I think, at the most at one time was 17 official pet snakes. And so we would have had 17 pet snakes, 2 dogs, 2 cats. We had a fish tank with some goldfish in it. I think that would, and I think that's what it was. All it was on the animals. Then we had 4 kids. So we had a small zoo at our house for a while there. At one time, our son brought home a bearded dragon once. His girlfriend, some girl he was dating at the time, had a bearded dragon and let him keep it for a while. So we had a bearded dragon. And then he tried to do the hermit crabs, and he was just too busy with that. So I think that's all of our pets. Sorry, it's just been a lot of memories. I'm just trying to get through the memories of that. It's a lot of stuff. It's been a lot of years worth of pet information I had to try to bring up. But right now we're just down to the 2 dogs, 2 cats, and that's it. So anyway, I guess that's my talk on pets. Let's see how long this video been. How long I've been going on about all this stuff. Yeah, it's a little over an hour now, which is, like I said, is the good time frame, an hour. So I guess that's it. Feel free to leave your stories. Your pet stories down in the comment section whenever you view this video and you feel like sharing what pets you've had through the years. So it certainly has been a non-dull life. There's always drama at this house, believe me. There's not a dull moment here at all. Ever. Ever, ever. A lot of drama. But anyway, thanks for listening, for those who view this video. And I'm gonna head to bed. I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow, or technically today, and I have to take the bus, and that's a 2-hour trip one way. So tomorrow's gonna be a long day because I gotta take the bus there and back, and then usually at the doctor's office for a couple hours. So that's 6 hours with the trip and the doctor's office. So tomorrow's gonna be draining, and I'll sure be taking a nap when I get back. But then I guess I'll probably do a video on what happened at the doctor's office, I guess. Anyway, I'll end this, and I'll see you next time.